This is Gemara Baba Kama Daf Yod, and we are holding on the bottom of Tes Amid Beis, 7 lines from the bottom, the first word on the line being Hacha. Says the Gemara, Tanu Rabbanan Chaymer Bishar Mibabar. After discussing in the previous Amud Daf the contrasting the difference between bar, shar, ish, the Gemara now really continues that discussion in a way, side tangentially, figuring out all the different chumras and kulas, shar versus bar versus ish, etc. So says the Gemara, chaymer bishar mi babar, and as always, the first one will take a little bit slower, and afterwards it sort of keeps the same template. Chaymer bishar mi babar, that what? And then on the flip side, chaymer bibar bi bishar. Chaymer bishar mi babar. A shar, an ox, has stringencies over a bar, a pit. That what? Shashar mishalim esakayfer. That a shar, if an ox gores and kills a person, there's an obligation to pay koifer v'chayiv b'shleishim shel eved, and there's an obligation if an ox kills a eved, it has to pay 30 shekel. V'nigmar dinai aser bahana. If a shar is condemned to stoning due to the fact that it gored and therefore has to be killed, as you look at Rashi, 2 lines from the bottom, Rashi says, Imhemis Adam. I apologize, a little bit of a gray box surrounding us. I'm not exactly sure why. Bala Sharnaki, Kadam Sharm the Chaveiroi, plenty of Chasav, and therefore there's no Hana. So the Shar, the ox itself, is Aser Bahana. So 3 Chumras. Number 4, Vedargoi Leilech Ulahazik, the derech of an ox. An ox by its very nature is a damaging entity. Mash'enkin bibar, whereas a bar does not pay kaifer, doesn't pay shleish eved, it's not aser ba'ana, and it's not the derech, nor does it leilech, does not go to the damage. Whereas on the flip side, chaymer bibar mi b'shar, so those were 4 dinim of a shar. Now on the flip side, a bar has chumras, has stringencies, that what? Shabar tchilas asiyasay lenezek. A bar in its very creation, the moment is created, it is a damager. And there's no din the first time it damages like a shar, it's a tam, then it becomes a muad, dinim that we're going to get to eventually. A bar, right away, is a muad. Masha inkin bishar. So that was shar versus bar. We turn over to Yod Amud Aleph. The Gemara continues the comparing and contrasting with Eish. Says the Gemara, Chaymer b'shar mi ba'eish. Now we have a chumra of shar over eish and chaymer b'eish mi b'shar. Chaymer b'shar mi ba'eish shar. Number 1, Risham is like we said, v'chayiv v'shleish shalav nigmar din aser ba'ana. 3 chumras of eish. The 4th that we just mentioned a moment ago of darkei lilech ulahazik is not mentioned. Why not? Because an eish has the same derech to go and damage. But now there's a different 4th din. The Masur l'chei v'katan chayiv. Masha in came be'esh, which is not true when it comes to a fire. Chaymer mi be'esh mi bashar. Whereas a fire has chumras that what? Sha'esh mu'ades b'tchilasa. And eish is a muad. Again, like we saw by a bar, right away, it's considered it has to be full damage. Masha inkin bishar. Now on the flip side, chaymer mi eish mi bar, that what? V'chaymer mi bar bi beish. Again, that was shar bar shar, shar eish shar. Now we have the last of the permutation is bar eish. Chaymer eish mi bar v'chaymer bar bi beish. Chaymer bi bar mi beish. We're 8 lines down. Yod Amud Aleph, that a bar sees over a fire, that what? Shetchilas asiyasa lenezek. That again, as we saw in Amud Aleph, one of the characteristics of a bar is from its very inception, it is standing to damage. Similarly, Masal Chayr Katan, as we saw yesterday, it is Chayif. Mashen came by Eish, that an Eish is not ready to damage from its inception, nor is it chayiv if you give it over to Chayr to Vikatan. Chaymer mi be'eish mi babar. An Eish is a chumra over a bar. Sha'eish darkoi leichula hazik. That an Eish, its derech, is to do damage, and umay edes lachol bein davar rayula, bein davar sheinai rayula. And similarly in Eish, it's rayu to damage, let's say better. It's a mu'ah to eat. Now, what does it mean it eats? Of course, that means consumes, whether things that are rayu and not rayu to. We have to see what that means, as the Gemara will explain in a moment. But the words mean that a fire is common, regular, to damage, to consume things that are normal for a fire to consume, and things that are not normal for a fire to consume. Masha'enkin bebar, which is not true by a bar. Period. So that was the shar, bar, ish. So now, says the Gemara, there's one permutation that we did not have. V'listi chaymer bishar mi bebar. Ask the Gemara, why don't we say a chumrah of shar over bar? Now, if you remember, on Amid Aleph, we compared shar to bar. So it's the three, shar, bar, and ish. We did all the comparisons. But says the Gemara, we left out a chumrah of shar over bar. That what? Sha'ashar chayiv boyes hakelim. A shar obligates kalim, meaning if shar damages kalim, the owner has to pay. Mashenkin bebar. If a bar damages kalim, a unique din about a bar, that the owner of the bar is potter. Says the Gemara, that's not true. Hamani, Rabbi Yehudi, we're going to sheet of Rabbi Yehuda. Who's Rabbi Yehuda? These are all larger discussions that we're going to have. This Rabbi Yehuda we actually had already, and we will have again. Timachayev on this kekelim bibar. Rabbi Yehuda holds there's an obligation of kalim into a bar, whereas the Chachamim pater. So we can't list this as a chumrah, because according to Rabbi Yehuda, a bar is as well chayiv for kalim like a shar. Asks the Gemara 1 second. Rabbi Yehuda ima seifa. Look at the seifa of the brisa that says, chaymer be'eish mi babar. What was the comparison? That an eish darch le'likula hazik umur lachol bein davar rayula, bein davar sheina rayula, masha ein kein bebar. So what did the seifa say? That a bar is not the derech to damage items that are not ro'ite. What does that mean? So let's explain that, says the Gemara. Davar ha'rayula ma'inu. What is the davar rayula? That's eitzim, things that are normal to be consumed by a fire. Davar she'enai rayula ma'inu. What is something which is not roi, is not regular, is not common for a fire to damage? Says the Gemara, that is kalim. That is referring to kalim. Masha enkin bebar. So it said that's by a shar is a mu'at for whether it's ra'i or whether it's not ra'i. Masha enkin, an ish, slicha. An ish is obligated whether it's ra'i or not. Whereas the Brisa said Masha enkin bebar. 1 second. We just said Rabbi Yehuda holds that a bar is even chayiv in kalim. Rabbi Yehuda, Ha'amri Rabbi Yehuda holds machayiv Rabbi Yehuda on this gay kalim bebar. So you can't tell me it's Rabbi Yehuda. So again, we asked that we should say a chumrah of shar over a bar with regard to kalim. We answered it's Rabbi Yehuda, which is machayiv on this gay kalim. It says the Gemara, if it's Rabbi Yehuda, the end of the brisa does not work. Ela lo'ilam, says the Gemara, you're right. You know we have to say that it's Rabbanani. V'tana v'shayir. And the Tana did not list all the cases. Certain things were left out. Which of course, let's just familiarize ourselves with this term. Anytime a Gemara gives a list, if part of the list is not complete, we say, oh, the Tana didn't list every single case. The obvious follow-up is, okay, the Tana didn't list every case, so what else was left out? Ma'ashayir, ta'ashayir. What else was left out? Says the Gemara, shayir tamun. Items that are hidden are pater from ish, that as well was now listed as one of the chumras, one over the other. That's teretz number 1. Teretz number 2 is Rabbi Yehuda. Really, we're going back. We're saying we're sticking with Rabbi Yehuda, who says you're chayiv on kelim in a bar. V'davar shein rayula, when the Brisa contrasted eish to bar, what did it mean? Something that's a ra'i for an eish. Lav la asuye kelim. What's it talking about kelim? What's it talking about? Ela la asuye lechecha niroi v'sichecha avanov. A unique damager of an eish, which is what? That if an eish is literally lichecha niroi, it licks a plowing, sichsicha avanov, it scorches a stone. Those are two unique cases where an eish is pater. But Maslar of Ashi, 1 second. I'll ask you another kasha. Listi chaymer b'shar mi'abar. That what? Shashar chayiv by shar psule hamikdashim. So now, again, we try to answer to Rabbi Yehuda. So what is the davar shein arayula lichani rav sicha avanav? So seemingly everything is fine. But now the Gemara's problem is, wait, I'm going to prove you that either way this brisa was not complete. Maskiv lo Rav Ashi, listi chaymer b'shar mi'abar, that what? A shar is obligated if it kills a shar psuli hamikdashim, which is an ox which is a puzzle from the service of the Beis Hamikdash. Mashigim b'bar, which is chayiv. So, if you go with our first teretz, and we said it's not Rabbi Yehuda, it's Rabbanon, and we said things are left out, and what else is left out? Tamun. Then I could say, I did the shayir hach, shayir nami hach. Then it makes sense that this is another case left out. Eliyam Rabbi Yehuda, my shayir, the high shayir. If it's Rabbi Yehuda, what else is left out? So the Gemara tries to suggest shayir dash b'neiroi. It's left out that if an ox tramples on another field that is plowed, the ox is chayiv, whereas a pit is not, the bar is not. Imisham dash b'nir lav shiru. Why? Datana this dash chein darker leilchul hazik, and this is included in that. This is a way of a shar damaging in its normal derech. So that's not called something that's left out. Therefore, the Gemara is concluding that the second teretz to try to say it's all Rabbi Yehuda does not work, and we have to stick with saying that it is indeed the shita of the Rabbanon, and there were things that were left out. And that's part A of Daf Yod, which is the comparing and contrasting of Shar, Bar, and Eish, which as well, everyone realizes, gives us a very firm basis of all the dinim relevant to Shar, Bar, and Eish. Whether the dinim of Darker Leil Chazik, whether the dinim that a Shar has this concept of Mu'ad Tam, doesn't pay fully right away, whereas other damagers do. Whether it's the concept of the Ptur of Kalim in a bar, whereas if Yehuda says you're Chayiv, etc., etc. And we continue 12 lines from the bottom of Yud Amud Aleph, the two dots in which the Gemara continues, Hechsharti b'mixas nizkoi. This is the next part of the Mishnah. That the Mishnah says that you caused partial damages, but that you're obligated to pay as if you caused all the damages. Tana Rabbanan, says the Gemara, Hechsharti mixas nizkoi chayiv v'tashlumei nizkoi. That's the same thing that the Mishnah said, that if you do part damage, you're obligated in full damage. Says the Mar Ketzad, what is this case in which you could be doing partial damage and you're chayiv full damage? Says the Gemara, I'll tell you a case. One guy digs a pit of 9 tefachim, and the next guy comes and does what? And adds on an extra tefach. What's the case? What's the din? The acharoin is chayiv. And this is, says the Gemara, Deloy Rebbe. Why? The Tanya Rebbe, the Brisa says, Achaver Bartisha Obachar V'shlim Asara. Acharoin chayiv, that's the Tanakama, that's the din in our Mishnah. That even though the acharoin only dug 1 tefach, he prepared mixas nizkoi, he's still obligated in the whole thing. Rabbi Omer says, Rabbi acharoin lemisa, achar shneim lenizakin. Rabbi says, no, that's only a din of misa. But with regard to nizakin, they're both obligated. Therefore, this would not be a case of our Mishnah, because in our Mishnah, the one that did part is obligated in whole. And according to Rabbi, they're both obligated. Rabbi Amar, Lemisa v'divrei. No, we could say that the Mishnah was particularly referring to Misa, and that everyone agrees that for Misa, the guy who dogged the 10th tefach is obligated. Ikadi Amri continues the Gemara with the second lashon. Lema Dulaike Rabbi. Let's say the Mishnah is not like Rabbi Amar Papa and Misa v'divrei Akol. No, it could be like Rabbi, referring to Misa according to everyone. Asks the Gemara, 8 lines from the bottom, Askiv la Rav Zeira, V'suleka. Is this the only case in the Mishnah which the person was a Echsharti Mixas this guy and he's obligated in full? Says the Gemara, Va'ika, there are other cases as well. For example, Masar Sha'roi Lechamisha B'nei Adam. One gives over his ox to 5 different people. Upasha by Echamim, one of them is Poishei as negligent. The Hezek and the ox damages, Chayiv, the one that was negligent, is obligated. So seemingly he only did part of the damage because he was one of 5 Shoimrim, and yet he's the one that's obligated. Says the Gemara, Nachamol Hechidami, what's the case? If you're going to tell me without this 5th guy, there would be no watching of this animal. Says the Gemara Pshita, it's obvious he's obligated to Yukovit. He did all the watching. And without him, it's nothing. Says when you know what the case is. It's 5 people. So without this 5th guy, really the ox would have been watched. So my Kovid, why is he chayiv? So says the Gemara, this cannot be the case in which one who does partial would be obligated in full. Maskler of Sheishes Va'ika, we're going to have a bunch of the Ha'ikas. Is there not another case? Marbe B'chavila. Says the Gemara, someone adds on chavilos. So it adds on twigs to a fire. We think right now that when that fire damages the one that was marbe, even though he only did partial damage, he'll be obligated in full. Says the Gemara, hey Chidami, what is the case? As we turn over to Yudam Beis, a similar question to what we just asked about the 5 people watching one ox. If you're going to tell me that without him, lo yazla, the fire would not have damaged, pshita, then it's pasha that he who added on those extra twigs is obligated. Elo debelav, you azla, without him would have damaged. So my covered, what did he do? Maskler Ababa, third question on the Mishnah. There's another case. Well, not really the Mishnah, but in the Brisa that explained that the case of the Mishnah of doing part damage and being obligated in full is referring to one who dug that 10th tefach. Ask Rabba 3 lines down, I'll tell you another case. Hey, Sheyashu al Safsal, 5 people are sitting on a bench. Echad, one bench, Lo Yishavru, and the bench doesn't break. Oba Echad, and number 6 comes. V'yashav alav, and sits on it, V'shivra, and it breaks, Acharoi Chayiv. V'amar Rabba, and Rabba parenthetically adds on Kigoin. What's an example in which a 6th guy would cause the whole bench to break? Papa Barabba! Papa Barabba, which Rashi says he was a Baal Basar. He was a heavier person. So says the Gemara, here's another case, asks Rabba of someone that does partial damage, and we're saying he's obligated in full. So this could be the case of the Mishnah. Says the Gemara, hey Chidami, what's the case? If you're going to tell me itvar, without him it would not have broken pshita. Of course he's chayv, he broke the bench. It's already broken anyways. My cover, what did he do? My cover, what could he do? What did he do? Says the Gemara. Good question. But masnita. Excuse me. Hey, how are you going to answer this case up? This is a case of the Mishnah. You know the case of the bench is Dablavi without the 6th guy having mitzvah bitreisha. It would have taken 2 hours to break. It would have broken. It would have just taken a little bit longer. Now it broke in 1 hour. That's the case that the last guy, because he caused it to break faster, he is obligated. Ask the Gemara, Damri Lei. Excuse me, because they say to that last guy, if not for you, we would have gotten up, it would have broken. So by you hastening the breaking, and thereby we didn't get that chance to get up, that's why you are obligated. Ask the Gemara, why doesn't he say back to them, if not you with me, if I was here myself, it wouldn't have broken. So why are you all potter? Says the Gemara, the case is that the 6th guy merely leaned on the branch. that caused it to break. Says Mar again, Pshita, what's the shaila? You leaned, it broke. What's the shaila? Explains the Gemara, I would have thought, maybe it's just your koyach. It's not you yourself. Now the difference between sitting, which is you, and pushing, which is koyach, obviously is not so simple. Kamash v'lan de koychay de gufay dami, says the Gemara, tuchlecha de gufay tavar, koychay nami tavar. If the guf would have broken, his strength would break, and that's why he is obligated. Asks the Gemara, I think this is number 5. 8 lines from the wide lines, Suleka. Is there no other cases? Vayika, what there is? Haditani, that which we learned in our Braisa. 10 people hit with 10 different sticks. We're talking about hitting a person, Rahman al-Islam. Bein bevazachas, whether they did this at once, bein bevazachas, that did one after another, and the person dies. Kulan Patur, and they're all Patur. Rav Yehuda ben Beseir Omer bezachar zef was one after another. Then because he hastened the death. So says the Gemara, here's another case with this last guy, that final blow, he's obligated in full. So why is it this case of the Mishnah in which you do partial damage, you're obligated in full? Says the Gemara, we're not talking about this case because we're not talking about death, killing in the Mishnah. Same another teretz, are we not talking about a machlekes? And again, this last case was machlekes Yehuda ben Beseir and the Chachamim. We said it's not like Rabbi. Says the Gemara, Rabbi ukarabanan mukminan. That we can hear. It's not that it's a machlekes. It's true there are detractors, but we're going to sheet of the Chachamim. Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseir v'lo karabanan loy mukminan. That we would not do. We continue on the last narrow line, quoting the next line of the Mishnah, which is what? Chavti b'tashlume nizka, he's obligated to pay for the damage. Says the Gemara, Chavti b'nizkai loikotani, does not say that he's obligated to pay for his damage, but rather, says the Gemara, elo b'tashlume nizkai. Rather, what does the Mishnah say? That he's obligated in the payment of damage. The word tashlume means, says Rashi, like hashlama. What does that mean? That means that he only has to complete the payment. What do you mean complete the payment? He damaged, he has to pay. What this means is that, as we'll see in a moment, he who did the damage is going to take the dead carcass of that which was damaged, and then he has to just fill in the remaining value. And now says the Gemara, Tanina la detanur abban saraya, for the following Mishnah on the first wide line. Says the Gemara that says what? Tashlim la detanur abban. Tashlume nazik melamed shabaylim metablim binivela. That excuse me, I said it wrong. Excuse me. That he has to pay. One more time. He's obligated in the payment of the damages, which means, again, that the mazik has to only complete the damage. What does that mean? That means that the nizik, he who is damaged, keeps the carcass, keeps the nevela, sells it. Let's say the animal is worth $1,000. Reuven gores Shimon's $1,000 animal. Shimon has to now take this dead carcass, sell it for, I don't know, $100. And then Reuven is chayiv b'tashlume nizkoi, to complete the damage, and not b'tashlume nezek. Meaning the bailim, the nizik, keeps the carcass, keeps the nevela, and he is obligated to be metabel with it. The mazik just has to pay the rest. Minahani mili. Says the Gemara, where do we know this? Says the Torah, that if you strike an animal, you have to pay. Al tikri yishal meno. Ella, yash limeno. Don't say pay for it, rather complete it. That's a raya. That what? The nizik keeps the nevela, and you have to complete. You have to finish up the payment. Rav Kahana Rav Mayalcha, second source. Tarav yitarev yiveu eid ada treifa lo yishalem. Ada treifa yishalem. Treifa atzma lo yishalem. You don't have to pay for the actual treifa itself. As the treifa itself, the bailim, the nizik keeps and has to deal with, and the mazik just has to complete the payment. Continues the Gemara in the fourth white line. Chizkiah Amar, a third source, Mehacha v'hameis yeloi lenizik. How do you know if Amesi Eloi means the nizik? Amr loikachi, my loikachi. Amr Abai Isa gedaitach nevela dimazik avoi. If you're going to tell me that the nevela goes to the mazik, lichtoiv rachmana shar tachashar velishtoik. Should have stopped there. You damage a shar for a shar. You got to pay shar for a shar. What does that mean? That means you, the mazik, will keep the animal and just have to pay for a full animal. Those extra words teach us Lamali, Shmamina lenizik. Shmamina that it goes to the nizik, and the mazik only has to complete and pay for the rest. And we conclude with the Gemara showing Utsricha, why do we need all these sources? I would think it's not common that pasuk is talking about killing an animal via a human. Aval treifa, an animal killing an animal, the shchicha emaloi. Tzricha in both cases. V'yashmina treifa mishum dememila. I didn't do it, my animal did it. So maybe only in that case does the nizik keep the animal, and I just have to complete. Aval mak be'ema dibiyadayim. If I kill an animal with my own hands, emaloi. Maybe I have to pay in full, and I walk home with the carcass, and I have to deal with the rest. And that's why we said both psukim. V'yashmina nani tarti. We said both psukim. Ha mishum lo shchicha v'mishum dememila. Aval v'amesi aloi, the third pasuk, teshchicha ubiyadayim v'amesi aloi, which is shchicha and which is common. Aim aloi v'yashvin ha'amesi aloi mishum de'mayin kamazik, your money is down. Shing aval hachal v'gufu kamazik aim aloi tzricha. That is the reason why we need all the psukim. We'll stop over here and we'll pick it up from Rav Kahana the next year of Siyata Dishmaya.